Hi folks, so for this video I thought I'd go through my Plants of Canna illustrations. These I did back in 2018 during an Inktober, so they're all done using fine liner pen and the Faber-Castell Artist Pitt pens. So there's 31 in total, but I thought today I'd just go through some of my favourites, name the plant and give a little bit of information about each one. So this one is Small Adder's Tongue Fern, and this is quite a rare plant that has been recorded on Canna but quite a few years ago now, and one we just failed to find while we were staying there. So this one's quite similar to Adder's Tongue Fern. So this plant grows to about 10 to 20 centimetres tall, and where it's been recorded on Canna is the Machar grassland, so going by its colour it would be really quite hard to spot in amongst everything else. But it gets its name from the tall stalk in the middle here that holds its spores, and that resembles a snake's tongue, so that's why it's got that name. So next we have Bog Bean, and it's been named as such because its leaves resemble the shape of broad beans, and it's found generally, as the name would suggest, in bogs, wet areas, marshes and shallow waters. And it's a really pretty flower, and you can see from the flowers, these white flowers are quite star-like. So while I was drawing this series of plants, I didn't want to kind of miss out some of the grass species, often underlooked. And this one here is Bottle Sedge, and it's named Bottle Sedge because its green spikes resemble a bottle brush. And again, this one is, like many of the plants that I've drawn, are found in sort of boggy areas, wet areas, ponds, that sort of thing. One interesting fact about this is the seed cases trap air inside of them, so it will help the flowering spike float in deeper water. So this one is Barnett Rose, also the sort of traditional white rose of Scotland. These are sort of found all over Canna, particularly in the Machar grassland edges. And yeah, it's generally found in the coasts of Scotland and the Inner Hebrides, but not in the Outer Hebrides or the Northern Isles, and everywhere else sort of in sand, dune, heath and limestone areas. So one way to identify this rose from other species is the fruit here is black, where other species the fruit is always red. And you can actually mix the rose hips with alum and it'll create a purple dye. So this one is Common Century, and it is found sort of in grassland, heathland, coastal areas, and it's one of my favourites. When you see the pink, it's so artificial looking, you sort of wonder if it's real, but that is how pink it is. So the flowers are sort of 5-petal flower head clusters, and each plant can hold up to 50 flowers on it. And although I never noticed this before, and I'll need to look out for it, it's seemingly the plant will kind of close in on itself in overcast or damp weather, so much like the saying of cows are sitting down, that is seemingly another way to know if the weather's coming in bad. This is our first carnivorous plant on the list. This one is Common Butterwort. So yeah, it's kind of bright yellow green leaves excrete a sticky fluid that attracts insects. So, and once insects land on the leaf will curl up and slowly kind of digest that insect to give itself nutrients. You find these sort of in acidic soils, and that soil doesn't give the plant enough nutrients, which is why it's evolved to trap insects as well. And they're really pretty. You can see them with the sort of purpley pink flowers kind of dotted over sort of boggy areas, heathland. Nice plant to spot. So this one is Yellow Flag Iris, and again it's found in waterways, pond, marshes, pretty much boggy areas. If you see this plant, you know it's a little bit wet in the area. So they're really nice when they come into flower with the kind of bright yellow petals, and they can grow up to 1 metre tall, and it is actually a plant that's believed to avert evil. So here we have Foxglove, and these can grow up to 2 meters tall. They're a biennial plant, so in the first year they don't actually flower, so their leaves can often look quite similar to the comfrey plant, but the way to tell the difference is the foxglove leaves have teeth around them, whereas comfrey's leaves are smooth-edged. And you find these in sort of woodlands, hedgerows, moorlands, and they're really valuable for bees and other insects. And it was once said that the mottled sort of marks on the petals were the handprints of fairies. And if you look at the Gaelic for foxglove, it is Lusnambanshif, which translates to the fairy woman's plant. So this one is frog orchid, and this is a vulnerable and near threatened plant, so it's quite exciting to have these on canna. Compared to other orchids, it's I suppose a bit boring in that it's not as colourful. It is sort of this greeny brown kind of reddy shade, so it's quite hard to spot in amongst all the other sort of grassland macher plants, so you have to look around a little bit. But it's given its name because the flowers are said to look like small frogs when you look at them up close. So this is a common yellow plant that's often seen spreading along grassland and heathland and sort of road verges and stuff like that. So this is Tormund Hill, and it's quite similar to buttercup in terms of the flower, but the way to tell the difference is Tormund Hill has 4 petals on its flower, whereas buttercups have 5 petals. It is a rich source of nectar, and the roots will also give a red dye. So this one is Oyster Plant, and this is a very scarce plant. It's now only found in a few limited sites throughout Britain, namely sort of the north coast of Scotland and Shetland, and there's a couple of small patches of it on canna, and it's this really distinct pale green, bluey grey coloured leaves. My leaves look quite green here, but they can be extremely grey tinged when you see them on the shingle. So it generally grows along shorelines and roots to shingle, and the way it disperses is when the tide comes in, it'll kind of break a bit off, and that's how it sort of multiplies. So its flowers are initially red when they're closed, but as they start opening up they turn to a sort of deep blue purpley shade, and as its name might suggest, its leaves taste like oysters, but because it's so rare I would not recommend sampling. So this one is roseroot, and it's a member of the stonecrop family and grows mainly on sea cliffs or up mountain rocks, and it can grow in very cold climates as far north as the Arctic. But yeah, this is one of my favourites out of my set of drawings, and I love spotting these on the rocks on canna. It's a really sort of unusual looking plant. So this is my sketch of lichen. So this is the Usnea species, or the bearded lichens, and these are a great indicator of clean air woodlands, and they provide many sort of habitats on tree trunks and branches for small invertebrates. So one of its more common name is old man's beard, and they always tend to be this pale green-grey in colour, but they are declining due to the impacts of past sulphur dioxide pollution and continued nitrogen air pollution. So this is our second carnivorous plant. This is the round-leaved Sunju. So again, this one's a heathland plant and it's found in boggy areas in amongst sphagnum moss. And again, its leaves have a sticky dew that sort of cover the tendrils that you can see on them, and it attracts insects, and then once an insect lands on it, the tendrils curl in and trap it, and then the plant absorbs the nutrients of the insect. And again, it's found in acidic habitats, and that's why it traps insects, is because it's not getting enough nutrients from the acidic soils. So this one is a kidney vetch flowerhead. So kidney vetch is found sort of in grasslands and coastal areas, and its Latin name actually means wound healer. And it's quite an important species as it's the only food plant of the rare small blue butterfly caterpillar, which is found in sort of the east coast of Scotland. So it's quite an important species. So this one here is maidenhair spleenwart, and it is often found in nooks and crannies of walls and rockeries and stony grounds. So yeah, this fern is made up of these kind of long fronds, and they have these small round leaves. Attached on the back of them is where the spores grow, and this fern is actually found worldwide. It's found everywhere, which is quite amazing. And this fern is Hart's Tongue Fern, so it's quite different to the Maidenhair Spleenwart. Its leaves are quite long and glossy, so it gets its name because it said the leaves look like a deer's tongue, and Hart is sort of an old word for a red deer stag. So that was just some of my favourite plant drawings from my Plants of Canna series. If you want to see the full collection, you can see it over on my website. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.